Welcome to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast. This is Sheng Peng, editor-in-chief of San Jose Hockey Now. You can also find my work at MEC Sharks and Twitter at Sheng_Peng.
And I'm Keegan McNally. You can find me on Twitter at half_hockey, at my website, half-wallhockey.com, or at San Jose Hockey Now. It's a special Christmas episode, Sheng.
Yes, happy holidays, everybody. And we've got Stephen Ellis. He's the prospect analyst for Daily Faceoff. He's going to tell us all about the 6 Sharks prospects at the World Junior Championships, which are starting on the 26th. And he's also going to tell us why he's so high on Will Smith.
It's an amazing interview with Stephen Ellis. I didn't do a good enough job hyping him up in the beginning, but it really was an awesome discussion. So stick around for that. It's going to be towards the end of the episode. It's going to be a very fun World Juniors for everybody. But this week, what we're going to talk about, we're going to talk a little bit about the Sharks' recent play and some of the rising play from players like Zadina. We're going to talk about Couture and Sturm news. We're going to talk about a recent interview with Chris Morehouse, the director of amateur scouting for the Sharks, and his thoughts on some of the Sharks prospects, including the ones going to World Juniors.
And your thoughts finally, on the preseason games.
And I've been watching a lot of
games.
The World Juniors preseason games, and they've been a ton of fun. And got some thoughts for that. And then finally, a Sharks Christmas wish list, then the interview. I am wearing a Team USA jersey this week.
Very jingoistic of you.
I mean, yeah, it's World Junior season. USA. Sharks have 2 USA prospects. They look like an amazing team that might go all the way.
I'm wearing my holiday shirt, so yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I'm just here
for the cookies. That is what I'm so excited for tomorrow. Is just the cookies, hanging out, put movies on, that kind of thing. So, Merry Christmas to all.
Yeah. Bye. What are you watching tomorrow?
Probably Die Hard. I do watch Die Hard.
So you do consider that a Christmas movie, which I do too, by the way. But I don't know why that's such a debate. So yeah,
I think it's just to bring Die Hard back into cultural relevancy. And people just want to talk about Die Hard because it's an amazing movie. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the Sharks this week, who were bad, but maybe some bright spots. Sheng, what was going on this week?
Yeah, I think the one guy who stands out as a bright spot is Filip Zadina, reinserted back onto the top line with Tomas Hertl. I think he's come out the last 2 games with a goal and 2 assists, I think. Anyway, it's not even just about necessarily the production, but he's just been all over. Very helpful part of that line. He's you notice him when he's out there, which is in a good way here. He's not doing too much, but when he is doing something, it's usually something that on the more positive side. Have noticed him, of course, over the last couple of weeks or so. I just wrote an article actually right before he got promoted, and David Quinn was talking about how there's been no BS in Zadina's game, just a very direct forward checking, back checking game, which I highlighted in an article a few days ago with a bunch of clips that I've been collecting since the Detroit game. And he was on the 4th line for all of these games. But, I think one of the things about Zadina that strikes me about his recent play and what got him promoted is a lot of times I feel like fans get really they really get agitated if like their favorite prospect or whatever gets shuffled off to the 4th line. The 4th line is not ideal, obviously, if you're a more offensive player and you're looking to produce and you're expected to produce, but you can still make an impact from there. And Zadina did. Zadina only had 2 assists in his 7 games on the 4th line, but he was doing a lot of other things that got the attention of the coaches and got him back on the 1st line, where now he's in a position to produce with Tomas Hertl and William Eklund. And so you can still impress in limited minutes. And I think a lot of times I do think that fans give their favorite prospects too much of a break. Like, oh yeah, he just was on the 4th line, he didn't have a chance. Your chances aren't as great on there for sure. There's no doubt, but overcoming your environment, right?
Yeah.
That's what you have to do in any situation as an athlete. And so if your environment is a fourth line environment, not the most conducive for producing, well, do other things to impress the coaches. And that's exactly what Zadina did. So it's well deserved where he's at right now, and I hope it continues.
It'll be interesting to see if he sticks higher up in the lineup, kind of like Zetterlund did, where his
Mhm.
play has been so consistently good or decent that he's stuck pretty high up in the lineup. And Zadina's moved and had the shuffle happen a couple of times, but um, hopefully this is kind of the final one that keeps him up higher because that line looks good.
Yeah,
Eklund,
they
Hurdle,
look
and
really good the
Zadina.
last couple games, and I
Yeah.
want to add too that I think maybe a month ago or so I had mentioned that I felt like for Zadina he had to simplify,
Hmm.
and then when you simplify, then good defense can lead to offense instead of just trying to force offense all the time. And I felt
Yeah.
like he was doing that since he's come back from his injury, and that he was letting the game kind of come to him a little bit more.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that Zetterlund has shown since the beginning of the season. And so I think I had mentioned Zadina as sort of a very good bellwether player for in terms of David Quinn's impact as a coach. Like if David Quinn can turn a Zadina into a valid, useful top nine NHL player, then David Quinn has pretty much shown that he is a good coach and he's the right coach for a rebuild.
Hmm.
David Quinn turning William Eklund, I feel is, and we've talked about this, is so driven by himself that it's going to be a
Sure.
little hard to ruin a William Eklund because I think Eklund has a very just good sense of what works, what wins, that sort of thing, right? And so even if Eklund isn't perfect in all the details right now, like he you don't need to tell him twice kind of, he's that kind of guy. And you can put him in a not great environment and he has the, I think the mental kind of stoicism or whatever to rise
Mm.
above it. I think Zadina obviously has bounced around the last 5 years in Detroit. He doesn't always have the confidence, right? And that's been discussed a lot, that he's a guy that is really hard on himself, doesn't have isn't always the most confident, and maybe a little bit too much of his identity has been tied into his goal scoring and his production. And
Sure.
so he's a guy that maybe has to like accept the fact that, hey, maybe he's not going to be a 30 goal guy, and that's okay. He can still be a really useful, productive NHL player. And so if Zadina tops out as, let's say, a 20-ish goal guy, but he's also an incredible forward checker and back checker, and he has the physical ability to do it. He skates well, good four-way mobility. He's underrated strong. He also has desire too. He's a guy that does. He's not one of those, how do you say it, like soft, just wants to score kind of guys. He really does want to win and be better. And so if he can change his game a little bit and change his mental approach, which I think he has done in the last month, and turn into a more complete NHL player, even if his production or his ceiling is lower than initially projected when he was drafted
Mm.
in 2018, then yeah, then he's gonna have a long NHL career. And again, that's a good example of what a coaching staff can do to help
Mhm.
bring a guy along, not just Quinn, but also his assistants. I know Scott Gordon works with Zadina a lot, and other assistant coaches too. And so, yeah, and so I think it's a good test, and hope it looks like Zadina
Hopefully.
might be turning the corner. So yeah, he's had a good stretch here, but I know he's also had flashes in Detroit too. So I don't want to I don't want to say he's
Yeah.
he's there yet, but yeah, he's been really good the last 10 games or so.
Just really hope the flashes turn into a more consistent baseline of a top nine forward.
Exactly. That's what
That's kind
you're
of what you
hoping,
want.
right? Right.
Yeah,
And
and
that's what we talk about with Eklund, right? Like
yeah.
we felt confident about Eklund because the B game is there when the offense isn't there or he's being shut down offensively, right? There's still
Mhm.
enough elements of his other game that it's worth keeping him in the lineup, at least in this Sharks lineup that is obviously not the deepest, right?
Mhm.
But when Zadina is forcing it and turning it over and stuff like that, and then he's letting it affect the other parts of his game, then that's when a guy gets sat, right? And so if he has a good B game,
Yeah.
then I'll give a chance for the A game to take over at times.
So Zadina's kind of a little bit of a diamond in the rough for this past week or so.
Mhm.
Ferraro had an amazing game that Quinn praised about because he had 3 assists against Vancouver.
Up and down game, but
Up and down in terms of impact, very Eric Carlson-esque, if you will.
yeah, actually, in a weird way. And I mean, that was a really
Mhm.
great. I want to highlight a really great read he made on the
Mhm.
Zetterlund goal yesterday against Vancouver. Willie Mecklin falls down, and Farrell just, I'm gonna go. And Farrell also has trust that Eklund knows when he gets up that he's got to help cover, or somebody's gonna cover for him.
Yeah.
And so it makes a great decision, because if Farrell it plays too cautious there, then there's nobody gets the puck, and that chance just dies when Eklund falls in the defensive zone.
Yeah. I can hear the comments and the headlines now. Keegan thinks Mario Ferraro is Eric Carlson. It's going to be great. Let's see. Duclair was healthy scratched at some point this week or last week. And
No, it was
then,
last week. Yeah.
yeah. And then he came back and had a goal 2 games ago, an assist yesterday's game. So maybe a little bit of a bounce back from Duclair as
Yeah,
well.
for sure. I think
Mm.
he's bounced back pretty well. He's done a good job of one of the things that Quinn was critical about and why he got scratched was that Declare he felt wasn't skating enough in all
Mhm.
3 zones, which obviously is usually a suggestion that the guy's not skating that hard defensively or in the neutral zone. Usually people skate hard offense, but actually Declare wasn't skating hard on the offensive zone too. That's why he was offside on that
Mhm.
Granlund goal against Arizona a week
Last
ago.
week. Yeah.
So yeah, so we have definitely seen more of that, more 200-foot of skating. We've seen the production kind of follow. Granlund's still playing at a pretty high level,
Mhm.
and that's helped. And Declare has, I think, a goal and an assist. So last couple games here.
We have I'm not going to call it a good top 6. We have a top 6 that's able to score goals, which makes me
Right?
happy. Yeah, it's not like the dark ages of the first 3 weeks of the seasons where you could like pray that you're going to get 1 goal a game. It's like now we're actually getting in some consistent
Yeah.
2, 3, 4 goal efforts, which is good. There have been like little stretches last week where they were bad again, but so there's at least flashes, I think. And
Yeah,
Eklund,
it's
great as
okay.
always. Eklund's still great
It's
as
okay.
always. We have the Jacob McDonald hype train still going on.
Jacob McDonald has as many goals as Eric Carlson.
Bam. See?
6.
And before Timo Meyer, I think, had 2 goals in the last game. Zetterlund had more goals than Timo. So
Yeah,
I don't know
well,
if it's still true anymore.
Sutherland scored yesterday, so yeah, so I'm not
Oh,
sure
maybe.
where that tracker is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should do a graphic with Timo's head and Fabian's head and Eric's head and Jacob's head. So
Yeah. You're going to get a ton of hate for all of that, but it's going to be good. um,
actually,
so,
Fabian is still ahead. Timo's at
ooh.
8 goals right now, so Fabian's got 9, right? So, one of the funny things about McDonald is, of course, he did score some of these goals as a forward too, so it does
Mhm.
definitely skew the stats a little bit. But when you look at NHL.com and you filter out defensemen and look at the goals, right, and guys who have 6 or more goals right now, I think the leader is who's got maybe 10, right? Is that Hughes probably with 10 or somebody?
Mhm.
I don't know
Around that,
who leads
probably.
right now, but somebody's got 10. But the funny thing is, like, when you look at the guys with 6 goals or above, and you look at just their minutes, right? Everybody's in the 20-minute mark except for
Yeah.
this one guy, Jacob McDonald, who also impressively has done 6 goals in 17 games. Is actually pretty crazy.
Mm.
And
It's the hype
not,
train,
not
man.
yeah, not that I expect him to keep it up, but like that's actually, yeah, it's Quinn Hughes with 10. But all the guys who have 6 or above, you just look at their minutes, they're all in the 20s, 20s, 20s. Um, the exceptions are guys like Thomas Harley has 9 goals. He plays 18 minutes a night. But then you
Yeah.
get to number 13 on the NHL.com list, and Jacob McDonald, 11:54 a night.
11 minutes. Oh my gosh. That's like, yeah, that's below most third liners
And
in
everybody's
third
in the
pairing.
high 20s or
Mhm.
30s in games played, except for Jacob McDonald, who has 6 goals in 17 games. So,
You know what? Do what you do well. Although I guess he's still some of that was at forward, so I don't know how much it
well, it's
counts.
weird
But
because, yeah, like yesterday's goal against Vancouver, he actually switched up on defense. If you
mhm.
watch that, he was a defenseman on that play. It was Ruda and McDonald back there, and so that's one of the fun things about what he's doing. That literally you don't know what position he's playing at any on any given shift. You really need to watch it to know.
Yeah.
And so I would say, like, his 6 goals, some of them have been on the power play too, where he does play basically power play is somewhat positionless, but he does play quarterback, which is a defenseman's position. He plays back, and so let's see. Actually, it does. I can see really quickly. He has 3 power play goals, and so that one yesterday he scored 2 was 5-on-5. So I think at least 4 of these 6 goals, he was. I would consider him playing defense.
Love it. He's the Erik Karlsson we needed all along.
Well, Erik Karlsson at what 14 times less money, so
That's true. Yeah,
I
and
can't argue with the value there. So
4 less years on the contract too.
yeah.
All right. Any updates on the Couture and Sturm injuries?
Couture just continues to seem like he's working, he's progressing. He joined morning skate for the first time. Then he followed that by joining practice for the first time. David Quinn said that the next step, though, is for him to be like a full participant in practice. Like he has been there for practice and he's been part of drills, but he hasn't done everything. He hasn't done all the contact stuff. So they're kind of withholding him from some of that stuff, right? So he does that. That's kind of the next big step for Logan. He didn't travel to Vancouver. I actually thought he might, not that he would play in Vancouver, but just to be part of the kind of the camaraderie, all that kind of stuff, right? The team road trip, which he hasn't done too much this year. But anyway, though, so he did not take part in that. And so we'll have to wait till after the holidays and see if he's a full participant in practice. Actually, I wonder if he's going to be in LA. The Sharks' first game after the holiday break is in LA on the 27th. So I wonder if we'll see Logan there. Might be I don't know if he's close. There's no timeline on him yet. So I would caution in terms of saying that he's going to be back by X date or very soon. Yeah. But he's progressing, and I think that's the important thing. Keeps trending kind of upward.
He gets a couple holiday cookies and holiday cheer in him, and then he'll be back and good to go. I think it was. I mean, it's good that he's spending time with his family and everything too. And
yeah, if I were to guess, though, I don't think we see him until January. I do think he's progressing, and we will see him soon. But I would guess, but that's just a guess, of course. Sturm, we don't have a timeline on him, but he talked with the Mercury News, and he revealed that he's actually been dealing with this issue. It was something in the right hand or wrist, which is exactly what we speculated, just based on what we had seen and heard and all that stuff, right? And anyway, so it is a right hand or wrist issue. He had a procedure done there. Apparently, it's something that he's been dealing with for a year or so, but just sort of the pain, the inflammation, he said, was just too great this time around. And so they just wanted to deal with it. And so there's no timeline for exactly when he will be done. It's not a finger precisely like Barrett Bonoff. There was a sense of when he'll be back, and he came back within the timeline that was given. So there's no timeline for Sturm. And so it'd be interesting to see if we will ever get to see the Sharks sort of 4 centermen that they hope to start the season with. In Couture, Hertl, Granlund, and Sturm, because as we've seen with what Granlund and Hertl have done this year, having a good centerman really does make the wingers better. And so it's unfortunate that, again, not that this would be a playoff team or whatever, but that never got to kind of see that, because I think we would have seen a better Sharks team if especially their centermen had been healthy.
But we would be so far not in last place in the Tankathon standings. Probably.
Not so far. Like I said, I don't think it makes that much of a difference, but there'd be a couple periods, couple games close there where you would see the difference. Yeah. So
we're getting close. Chicago is coming for it. Anaheim's coming for Columbus.
Yeah.
Teams are really gunning for this,
Yeah, but it'd be like 4 more points. So the Sharks might have 2 more wins.
Probably.
So they'd be very much in the race for the best lottery odds.
Yeah. As we are all going to watch the Immaculate Celebrini this week at the World Juniors, just keep in mind, again, you'll feel better and happier in your life if you just accept the fact that Chicago is going to win the lottery, and that's what's going to happen.
I don't accept things like that. I think things are so like I don't think
it's already predetermined. Not because the NHL's rigging it.
To send players
to
Edmonton
rigging it
and Pittsburgh
Yeah,
That's what I don't get. Yeah. So yeah,
it's not because they're rigging
it
it.
just
It's just because
lost.
the world is
Yeah.
unfair. There's no it's
Okay.
not it's just the life is meaningless world is
Well,
unfair.
yeah, then what will happen is that the Penguins drop out of the playoffs.
Ooh.
They're in the top 10. They win the lottery. The Sharks don't get the pick because that pick's top 10
Yep.
protected. And so
Yep.
they come into next year with an angry
Celebrini.
Sidney Crosby, an
Uh
angry Eric Carlson, and Macklin Celebrini. So
yeah, they have like
that would
amazing
be
center
unfair.
depths. Yeah, that's the one. You're right. Shang, you've just created a new nightmare scenario for us. Oh my god. Anyway, no, it'll be fine. Um, let's talk a little bit about the World Juniors. We are going to have a lot of, you're going to listen to a lot of discussion with Stephen.Ellis. So
Yep.
we'll keep it a little bit brief in this part, but I'm super pumped. It's going to be a amazing tournament. We've heard from Chris Morehouse this week on just the progression of the Sharks prospects, the 6 prospects that are there, and that's Will Smith, Eric Pohlkamp, Jake Furlong, Phil Bystedt, Mattias Havelid, and Kasper Halttunen. What surprised you about that interview, if anything, Shang? That with Chris. I don't know if
Well, I
surprise
wouldn't
might be the right
say
word.
anything surprised me. Yeah, I mean, you were bang on sort of why Furlong and Pohlkamp are there, and Morehouse basically said some of the same things. Pohlkamp's got a great shot, so there's some
Hmm.
power play value, but he's also is a scrappy defender.
Yeah.
Furlong is sort of that fit guy that can fit with a more offensive guy, or he can be also he can be the puck mover if you put him
Hmm.
with a shutdown guy. He's just sort of a jack of all trades defenseman for this Team Canada team. Uh, Halttunen obviously is got that shot that can murder you. But
Yep.
yeah, there are things that other parts of his game that he's working on that they seem happy with his progress
Good.
in London. So yeah, I don't know if there's anything so much surprising. I think it's just interesting to always hear from what the Sharks, Morehouse's Sharks director of amateur scouting, and so to kind of hear his perspective and how he's
Hmm.
seeing things. And yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
so one thing I think I will say that was, I guess, maybe a little different is that he did really make a note of sort of Will Smith's drive
Hmm.
and Will Smith sort of um maybe not leadership is the exact word, but just sort of that drive to succeed and be the best.
Passion,
And that's
maybe.
something that, yeah, that's something that they felt was really clear when they interviewed him.
Hmm.
And so that's the kind of thing that, like, when you talk about Will Smith, right, a lot of the discussion is about his on the ice skill, also his on
Sure.
the ice sort of flaws, right, like being a smaller guy, maybe not being the best defensively at all times, right? So it's always
Hmm.
centered around his on the ice, right? And so there's not a lot of chatter about just sort of his off the ice.
Sure.
And that sounds like a big reason why the Sharks drafted him. That they believe that he's a guy that whatever he is at now, he's driven to succeed, and so that means that he will work on the things that he's not so strong at, and he'll continue to excel at the things that he already is good at. And so, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, the I remember that mention or thinking that when we interviewed him at the draft, actually, just that he does have a little bit of I guess competitive fire. He seems very intense when he answers questions about competitiveness and the game itself. So I do remember thinking that when I was talking with him,
Yeah, I
or when
wonder.
we were
Like,
interviewing him.
I think I'll ask him something like this one day, giving something away. But like, I wonder
Yeah.
if he has sort of a chip on his shoulder, being the rich kid, which he is,
Mm,
to be honest, right? But sometimes that gives
sure.
you a chip on his shoulder that people doubt you because of this or that, or they think maybe you're less hungry.
Maybe. Yeah.
And I don't know.
And he's probably been the
So it's
best,
interesting.
and he's been best part of his age group for Team USA for like many years.
Hmm.
Because even before he had that breakout USHL season or USNTDP season, he was still like one of the better players the year before that, and he's been kind of in these international tournaments discussions. So you're right, maybe he's just got a little bit of a I'm the rich kid, I've been good for many years kind of chip on his shoulder kind of thing.
But like
Um,
I think maybe he's been doubted in some ways because maybe like,
yeah.
I don't know,
I also have
people.
no, I don't actually know how. Like I want to make that clear. I don't think I mean, unless you do. have any idea how actual like wealthy his family is,
Well, I don't know.
or if even if that
I don't know
matters.
about the amount of
But
dollars, but like
yeah,
if
sure.
you're the grandson of Charles Comiskey, owner of the White Sox, I mean,
Yeah,
and there are
you never know.
buildings, yeah.
Yeah,
So so I don't know. Yeah. So so that's sort of a leap on my part.
sure.
I'll admit. But
Yeah.
I do think though that there are sort of doubts and aspersions cast on him again, size also, right, and
Mm.
stuff like that, and
And it's like,
also two-way
yeah.
game questions, right? And so yeah, so I wonder how he will respond on a big stage,
Mhm.
like this one, just like
He
he responded at the U18s, of course, right? So
Oh yeah. And his first two games that I've seen of him, and this is all pre-tournament stuff, but they're actually pretty competitive games. Like they
mhm.
all the teams that are playing are, trying
I mean,
to
they are the
really set
full
their lineup.
teams, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the
So
full teams. They're trying to really see who's gonna be their leaders and such. He was excellent. Like he was
mhm,
really good. He his first game he had 2 goals. He looked sluggish in the first period, but then
mhm,
like came on constantly just stealing pucks, rushing the other way,
mm,
creating chances. So I think there is some element of his two-way game that is built around like quick hitting offense, like stealing the puck and going the other way with it,
mhm,
which can lead or can lead to him looking a little bit like high up in the zone, kind of floating a little bit because he's just
mhm,
kind of waiting for the defender to make a mistake to try and go the other way with it. That is a little, I won't call it like junior esque, but maybe a little junior esque. It's like that kind of play. Defenders aren't going to make mistakes at the blue line like they do in the like at the NHL level.
mhm.
So but right now, it's kind of how he drives a lot of his offense, and there is value in that defensively and offensively, obviously.
Sure,
Just
absolutely. Yeah, if
breaking
you
up
could,
this,
yeah, if
yeah,
you could turn a guy over high in the zone, I mean, that's
yeah.
counterattack city right there.
But
So
that's kind of like his mo right now, at least, is that kind of play at evens, and then obviously just creative skill. He's entering the zone very well. I think he does better at bigger ice, which is kind of, I think Stephen Ellis also mentioned this, is that his game like does really well when he has a lot of room. So
mhm,
he's going to need to work on getting enforcing that room at the NHL level, but it's exciting to see. His second game, I think he had 1 assist, but it was a beauty of an assist. Um, and he looked good. It just wasn't as like dominant as the first game that I watched him play,
sure.
but he's still going to be in the top six and likely in the top six and one of the driving forces because their line is just so good. It's like I really wish the Sharks would somehow draft all 3 dudes and then they could just create that line. This is Emily, my cat, in case anybody was watching on video. um, but yeah, he looked great. Pohlkamp, his second game looked really good. He was aggressive. He had one shift specifically in the offensive zone where he looked like an animal, like he was just all over the ice. And they hemmed in Team Canada for like a minute and a half, and he was a huge part of that. He was unleashing his point shot, looking for passes. It looked really good. So I think he's going to have a little bit more value on the team than people kind of give him credit for.
Mhm.
I think he will find himself on the power play at some point.
Yeah.
Um, all right, Emmy, you gotta go, babe.
But yeah, to finish up about the Morehouse interview too, Morehouse also talked about
Mhm.
prospects who aren't at the World Juniors, like Quentin Musty, Cagnoni, Cam Lunn, but also too a little bit of update on less kind of more under the radar Sharks prospects who are having pretty good seasons or have done pretty good things this season. David Klee. Brandon
Mhm.
Svoboda, Theo Jacobson or Jakobsen, I think it's Jakobsen, and
Yeah,
Axel Landon. And so yeah, check out that interview.
yeah. He ruined my. I was gonna surprise everybody with like a little bit of Theo Jakobsen talk later on in the spring because I watched a Allsvenskan game and I came away super impressed.
Yeah.
And I think actually during the Schummers, like the prospect camp, actually he had one or a couple good plays, and I remember noting that he looked good, better than I
Yeah.
thought he had in the past. So it's good. He's had a huge offensive explosion at the Allsvenskan. He's got like 20 something points in 20 something games. So interesting to see because he's kind of a not a forgotten draft pick, but a couple years ago and didn't really do too much for a few seasons there.
Yeah,
So
sixth round pick of the 2021 draft. Yeah, so
yeah. But it's interesting that Morehouse mentioned him. I'm excited to see if they try and get him to come over to North America soon.
Yeah.
Um,
Or maybe give him a year in the
yeah, SHL or
the regular, yeah, and then see if
Mhm.
he can kind of that production translates over there. So
Yeah, but he looks good. Um, who else? Havelid had kind of a up and down game against Team USA. He had a few things where he was out of position. Um, but the first game I watched of Havelid, he looked great. He, again, huge point shot, good puck mover. Kind of similar to Pohlkamp, to be honest, but I think um, a little less aggressive in the way that he
Mhm.
defends and everything. Um, he, him and Bystedt's looked excellent as well. He,
Has he? Okay.
yeah, he's had a goal. I think he had an assist the first game, goal in the second game that I watched. And yeah,
It looks
Emily's
like
just
you're
going to
wearing a
sit here.
scarf there.
Yeah, Emily, she likes to she walks on her shoulders. So around the house,
Yeah.
she'll just demand to be picked up and put on her shoulders and walks around with us. So this is where she sits.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so anyway, yeah, Beastats looked excellent. He does need to pick up the
Mhm.
physicality a little bit. I think he's a huge guy on the ice, like tall, still kind of lanky looking, but he could really, if you tried or kind of turned it up a little bit, he could really hit some folks and steal some
Mhm.
pucks. But he
Yeah.
kind of lets up a little bit, and I feel like his physicality needs to ramp up to be able to really use his frame effectively. Like he's
Mhm.
good at shielding pucks and all that, but he just needs to hit folks. Like
Mhm.
I don't want to say it like too bluntly, but he just needs to hit some people. Like he could definitely do it. He's got a
Mhm.
great like feel of knowing where the puck's going to be, so he's always in close contact with the like defenders or attackers, but he just doesn't hit folks. He just needs to hit somebody. That's my current analysis. And then Halttunen, I've only watched the one game of which I thought he looked excellent.
Mhm.
He had to get 2 assists in that game, both of which were really good cross ice passes, and he was very aggressive. So super pumped for all the Sharks prospects coming out. So and we'll have some analysis. I'm going to actually hopefully put out some articles on San Jose Hockey Now about some of the games. So because I've been
All
doing
right.
little Twitter threads basically. If you've been checking out my Twitter
Yeah.
on some of my thoughts, but I think it's time for some more formal analysis.
Yeah. Well, we'll check with the editor.
Yeah, gotta clear it with the editor. um, all right, Sheng. Let's go with our final Sharks Christmas wish list before the interview, and then we can get on
Yes.
out of here. Um, do you have a specific? What do you want for Christmas from the Sharks for the upcoming
Um.
year?
Yep. I think the two things in particular is I think the obvious thing is that I am hoping that young players continue to emerge. Just because as somebody who has watched this um, rebuild, half start, not really start for a couple of years there, and just I really like watching good hockey. I don't know how I've said it so many times, and I can't stress it enough. My work is better. I think the best work I've done as a writer was during the 2019 playoffs when I was still writing for Fear to Fin, and
Hmm.
went to every Sharks playoff game, even the road ones,
Hmm.
and paid my way for those. By the way, that wasn't SB Nation, but I just wanted to give the best coverage, and it was really important. And I was trying to make my name. But I
Sure.
think the best work I did was still probably in that year, in that playoff year. So I like Will Smith. I raise my level when when the stakes are higher. And I've been waiting for years for the Sharks to sort of be interesting again, so people care about breakdowns like tape breakdowns, or they care about the sport logic stats that I pay a healthy sum amount for every year, but they're not that relevant because the team is terrible and people don't care about micro stats when you're being clocked. Giving up 10 goals in back-to-back games and all that kind of stuff, right? People don't
Yep.
care about the micro stats because you suck. The counting stats say you suck.
Yeah.
The natural stat trick, the first wave of analytics, public analytics say that you sucked, and the micro stats will say the same thing too, that you sucked. And so there's no interest in that. And so for me, and I even for the health of the website too, it's good if there's hope. If people really
Sure.
think that, I think so at least, that it'll be good for business if the Sharks are better. And so to see guys like William Eklund, obviously, really taking a step forward in the last month or so.
Yeah.
I think right now he's this was kind of a question for Quinn in the first month of the season, and Quinn would say like, "Oh yeah, I thought he was better last year," which is not, of course, what you want to hear about a guy that
Yeah.
is, finally playing in the NHL regularly after 2 off and on seasons. But I would say right now, if we were to ask Quinn, I will ask him. I think that's a good question. Good thing to get an update in. But I would say right now, Eklund looks definitively better than he did last season. There's definitely
Yeah.
growth, and he may never be a superstar. Hint, hint for a future podcast episode. But he is a legitimate building block. Whether or not he's going to be a franchise guy or just like a really really good player to build around, both are still. Sharks need all like any of that, whether they be a future franchise guy or just a legit building block, just a guy that you can count on for X amount of points a season and
Yep.
good two-way play, right? They just need winning players, right? William Eklund looks like he's going to be a winning player. Also, too, guys like Fabian Zetterlin, Filip Zadina, if they can keep coming along, showing just being more consistent. But they both have shown a great degree of promise, especially Zetterlin. Let's not forget, just he started off on the fourth line. Now he's playing with Granlund and Duclair. And then speaking of more of those young guys too, obviously look to the defense too.
Sure.
And hopefully Thrun keeps progressing, Hotia, guys like that, right? So yeah, it's just so we start to see more pieces of guys that we think are going to be part of the next good Sharks team. And Eklund looks like a guy who's going to be there. That's great to see. Zetterlin might be, Zadina might be, Thrun might be, guys like that. So hopefully we see even more of that. So maybe a call up, in mid season, one of the Barracuda prospects shows another level to his game, be it a Bordalo or a Gushin or whoever, right? So anyway, more of that. So from some of the names mentioned would be great. And then the second thing, which is I think a little more less obvious, is that I've taken a lot of pleasure this year watching guys like Hurdle and Granlund, those two guys especially,
Sure.
really, I guess, find their games, after down years for both of them last year. And it is really great to see guys who want it as much as they do, who are being doubted for this and that reason, right? Come back and be the guys that they're supposed to be. And like we mentioned too earlier in the podcast, they've made their wingers so much better. I don't think Eklund takes the leap that he's taken if he's not stapled with Hurdle. I don't think that Zetterlin or even Duclair's recent sort of resurgence, right? None of that, or that's not as likely to happen for sure if Granlund's not popping in a point per game and
Yeah.
making plays
Gosh.
all over the ice, right? And so I've really enjoyed watching those two guys in particular just keep playing at an outstanding level, the level that that the Sharks believe that they could get back to, that you and I thought that they could get back to too. And so it's nice to see that even if the team is losing, that there's some good hockey, being played out there by a couple of the guys at least.
At least, yeah, like some of it's rising to the
So yeah,
top.
so I hope to
Yeah.
see. Yeah, so I hope to keep seeing that in particular from those guys and Couture when he comes back.
Love it. All right, I'm gonna put on the ridiculous hat because it looks ridiculous while I have headphones.
Hey, what
Ah.
happened? What happened to your scarf?
Oh, I need a. Yeah, my scarf has walked off. My neck is very cold. And scarf has legs. All right, there we go. Um, I have 2 Christmas presents I want for the Sharks in
Okay.
the new year. First one is I want an exciting trade deadline, and
Okay.
for the Sharks specifically. It could be, I don't really care if Detroit gets somebody crazy, whatever. But I want something unexpected. I don't just want to walk into the trade deadline going, "Oh, great, we got a 3rd and a 5th round pick for some expiring UFAs,"
Yeah,
and that
sure,
was
sure,
it.
sure.
I
Mhm.
want something. Either
Okay.
that I don't want a specific guy to be gone, but I want
Mhm.
something unexpected, either returning,
Okay.
as in like maybe a young player, somebody that the Sharks are targeting that
Sure.
they're bringing in to try and see if they can get some value out of. Um, Kind of like how they've done with, ever since Greer's come in, actually, just finding a
The
guy that's maybe.
Pittsburgh pick for Alexis Lafreniere. No.
Yes, there we go. That's the one. No, something unexpected. Or I want like a first round pick or some sort of prospect return for a guy that we're trading that I'm just
Yeah.
super excited about. So that's one present. The second one kind of similar to yours, where I want the Barracuda call ups to happen, and that'll probably be after the trade deadline, obviously, for specific guys. Um, Obviously, I still love Gushin and Bordalo. I think they had a call up already, so I'm not going to say that I would need them to be called up to be
Right.
happy. Um, but I think guys like, and this seems a little bit rushed, but Shakir Mugamadulin has played very well for the Barracuda this year, and they don't want to rush his development. I get that. I just want a
He seems to
little
be getting
taste.
better too, right?
Yes, he's come on
Yeah.
even
That's, I
more.
think, the most
He's
important thing.
exactly he's improving as he's adjusting to North America, and he I think he just needs a couple games. I want to see what he's like at the NHL level and see if what we've seen in the preseason and then in the AHL is actually going to be translatable at all. And I want a call up for 2 more guys, being greedy. Leon Gavanka, just because he's leading the Barracuda in points by D man, and he hasn't played an NHL game, and he's 25. I just want an NHL game,
Sure.
just one for Leon Gavanka. He's looked pretty good as well. He looked great last year in the AHL. I think there's probably a translatability issue that coaches keep seeing when he gets to there, but I just want one game for him. And then
Sure.
finally, an unexpected one. I want a call up for Ethan Cardwell because I think
Whoa. Yeah.
he also kind of deserves it. He's improved
Yeah.
throughout the season. He's getting it seems like points in every single game.
Mhm.
He's not a defensive liability. He's only 5'11", so he's not a huge guy, but he checks well. He
Mhm.
forechecks super great. So I think he could get a call up late in the season. So
Okay.
that's what I want for Christmas is some late season call ups.
Okay.
And maybe
Uh,
Gushtin too, because why not?
yeah.
All right, I'm
Let
taking
me
that
ask
off.
you for your
What's up?
trade deadline I guess drama. Here's just one I thought of. This is just me messing around.
Sure.
So Alexis Lafreniere started off the season pretty well. Obviously, he has went into a little bit of a slump. I think he went
Hmm.
13 games without a goal. Um, would you trade the New Jersey conditional pick, which can be a
Hmm.
first rounder if New Jersey makes the Eastern Conference Finals,
Yes.
for Lafreniere?
Yes.
How about Pittsburgh's top 10 protected first round pick?
Oh. If it's like 11, probably not.
Well, we don't
If
know.
it's
We don't know.
like,
That's if you trade a
yeah,
trade deadline, you're just sort of you're rolling the dice, right? So you're rolling the dice that New Jersey pick can end up anywhere from like what 25 to 55 or something like that, right?
hmm
And the Pittsburgh pick though is anywhere from 11 to, well, I
30,
guess if they win a Stanley Cup,
32,
yeah, 32, right? So
probably not.
okay, just
Just because of
curious.
where Pittsburgh is in the standings, I think it's more
Yeah.
likely it's top 15
Okay.
pick, unless you know yeah, you're kind of just hoping at that point if you trade it away. And I think the
Mhm.
Sharks need a defenseman in their pipeline, and that pick is right in the range for a ton of defensemen they could get.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the New Jersey pick, I think Lafreniere is going to probably be similar to what they're going to get in that range anyway, and maybe even a little bit better, probably a little bit better than what they likely are to get in that range. So
Yeah.
I think the
Okay.
the Pittsburgh pick is just a little bit too valuable in this draft, given how many defensemen are right around that area. So, but you know, Lafreniere is still young, so he could turn around.
Yeah.
But the Sharks do
Yeah.
have a lot
Trying to
of
spice it up
winger
here. So.
projects. Do have a lot of winger projects, so it's not like that's specifically their need either. So, yes, that would be a spicy trade deadline. I'd love it. I'd get my Christmas wish. All right. Do you have anything else to say before we go on to the Stephen.Ellis World Junior Championship interview?
Just thank you to everybody who has listened over the last year. Oh, I wanted to announce some exciting news too, that we're bringing on one of my writers that Josh Fragellin, but we're also bringing him along to help on the podcast a little bit, and so you'll start seeing a little more. He was able to help us get some video clips up. That
Great.
sort of thing, right? Not that we can't do that, just that the time it's tough for us, and so Josh is going to help with a little bit of that stuff. Maybe we'll have him on sometime. We need a guy in the studio that we can make fun of, a young guy, right? That's sort of
That's the that's
that's
the
a
podcast
radio,
dynamic.
like yeah,
Dang.
podcast radio dynamic. So
Fair. That would be awesome.
anyway, though,
Josh on.
yeah. So anyway, though, but happy holidays to everybody, and thank you so much for your support over the year, and we'll see you in the new year.
All right. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you guys say. We will see you soon. Bye. Today we're welcoming Stephen.Ellis to the show from Daily Faceoff. Stephen's going to be talking all about the World Junior Championships this year and how that pertains to the Sharks prospects. So welcome, Stephen, to the San Jose Hockey Now podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Great. So we should just jump right into it because we have a few Sharks prospects to talk about, which is good news for a team that is trying to build up their prospect pool. So just some general thoughts about the tournament before we get into the Sharks.
Yeah, it's kind of like you look at how the season started this year, and I think a lot of people kind of turned the focus to the World Juniors and things like that. And to have, I believe, 6 prospects for the Sharks represented, that's a big deal. That's a good thing. That's a good sign of the future. And, whether these guys all make it, whether they're trade candidates, whatever, I don't think it really matters. I think the good thing is, we've got players in Canada, USA, Sweden, and Finland. So every day you're going to have at least one guy to watch. I think that's going to be exciting for Sharks fans. Other than the fact that, again, if you live close to San Jose, maybe those 3 a.m. start times might not be super ideal for some of those games, but
not great.
If you're able to stay to wake up for those, it's going to be worth it, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit rough, just a touch. Let's start with Team USA, just because that was kind of given that Will Smith made the team, and that's the Sharks' prize prospect as of now. Let's start with Will Smith. He had the gold medal winning goal at the U18s last year. He has been kind of doing well in his first foray into college hockey. He's above a point a game. He's part of that dominant freshman line. But how do you think his game is going to adjust to this U20 tournament after his U18 play?
I think this is going to be, a walk in the park for him. We saw him with the U18s and that chemistry he obviously had all year long with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault, and that combination has continued into college, which is really exciting to see. And a lot of Boston-based guys in this tournament for the United States. But with Smith, it's just he could play anywhere in this lineup. He could be, the first line center. He could be the second line center. My guess is his line will be the second line. And that's one hell of a second line when you're looking at one of the most dominant trios in college hockey. So every time the United States seem to play and Will Smith's there, he starts to shine. We saw that at the U18s, the best hockey I've ever seen him play. Just the chemistry he had with those line mates were great, but he was the one driving those plays. And, talking to some scouts, some think that he'd be, the second best prospect in this year's draft. And it was a pretty stacked top end last year, but when it comes to Smith, the way he plays the game, I know he knows how to use that extra ice to his advantage. We've seen that already in his international career. And the good thing about the Americans is they do have a lot of experience playing on the bigger ice if you play on the development team, because usually that means you've played about 2 to 3 tournaments already with that extra ice. And so I don't think it'll take him long to adjust to that. He's going to be one of the best players in this tournament, no question about it.
Guys, if you guys don't know, Stephen is the prospects analyst for Daily Faceoff. His work is incredible, so make sure to go check it out. He touches on a lot of prospects. I follow his work. It's his reach is very wide encompassing. But my question to Stephen about Will is just basically what do you see his ceiling as? I think there's some questions about how he's adjusted to college hockey. Maybe some periods, some games where he hasn't been quite as dominant. So just what are you seeing for him so far in the NCAA?
I think the biggest concern with me back when he was in junior still applies here, where he will have these off games. And a good example was the top prospect showcase they had in Plymouth last year, and they kept that same line together, and we saw them so dominant. But when it came to how Smith played, the first half he was dead quiet, didn't do anything, kind of started to float around. And it
Mhm.
was like he heard everyone in the crowd saying, "What's going on? What's happening here?" Because then he ends up winning like the MVP of the game because he played outstanding in that second half. So for me, it's getting that game to game consistency could be tough. I think the issue with him is with anybody on that U18 team last year, they just floated to wins. I think they only had like a handful of losses all year long. So there weren't a lot of games where the Americans really had to get a lot more outside of just, offense out of that top line. And you can see Smith maybe not always attacking like he should and things like that. But when he's on his game, it's a guy with first line potential in the NHL.
Yeah, and that's kind of what people have seen in college too, is that occasionally his game won't be he'll look kind of like disengaged, or his like compete isn't as high. And I guess that comes back to not having to come from behind a lot as he was a junior. So yeah, I guess it'll be interesting to see when he's in this kind of tournament where it's a little bit, closer in terms of skill level between all the teams, how he's going to play. But
It's
and
actually
is
a higher
obviously-
level, right? Because
Yeah.
if Steven is right, he's on his second line. That's actually kind of a rare thing for him, right? Because he's usually
Normally.
a first line guy.
Yeah, and like he'll be playing on the power play. He'll get all those opportunities. It's like the only reason why he's not the top line is they want to keep those guys together, and you're competing
Mhm.
against like Cutter Gauthier, who is like an unbelievable beast in his own end. So, yeah, I'd say the second line, probably one of the best second line centers you can get in this tournament.
All right, I got to bring this dredgers back up. Smith or Michkov?
Oh, I'm Michkov all the way.
Okay, all the time. Okay.
Yeah, and nothing to do with Smith. I just think Michkov's the real deal, and
Yeah.
I can't believe, obviously he wasn't going number one. Number two, I think Fantilli should have gone. Michkov shouldn't have gone past number three.
Okay, sorry guys for bringing this back up. Those bad memories from June, but just had to get Steven on the record for that.
San Jose's not the only fan base that wishes they got Michkov, but
We'll be hearing about this for a decade.
the next
or more.
half decade, yeah.
especially when you
basically.
look at some of the center depth options that
Mhm.
the Sharks are going to have down the line. It's like, well, okay, it would have been nice to have a guy who can also play pretty good wing hockey, but
Mhm.
it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, at least it wasn't like Reinbacher over Michkov or anything like that.
Right,
Griffin Reinhardt.
I do
Reinbacher's
love
a one hell
Reinbacher.
of a
I love him,
defenseman. It's just,
but
that's not who Montreal should have picked.
absolutely. Let's talk about another guy from the Sharks here on Team USA, Eric Pohlkamp. And I watched Eric Pohlkamp during the summer showcase, and he kind of stood out like in a good way. And a lot of people kind of started to say, is this guy going to make the team, given there's a little bit of lack of defensive depth for the Team USA? Where do you think he slots in this defensive group?
I think he's going to be, third pairing at best. But the thing about him was, watching that World Junior Summer Showcase, I thought he was one of the best players they had there. And granted, they split the two teams up, so a bit more opportunity for a guy like him to show up. And like Lane Hudson didn't play every game, but you just look at his record with USA Hockey last year at the World Junior A Challenge, was one of the best players in that tournament. He scored over a goal per game when the USA won gold. His college team doesn't get a lot of high-end prospects out there, and for him to play as well as he's been doing this year, and then obviously what he was able to do with Cedar Rapids last year, this is a guy that's playing with confidence in the last 18 months of his career. I think that this is someone that's going to turn a lot of heads. So someone who was definitely very far from being a lock on this team, had to fight his way through. Not a tall and stature guy, but he does play a bit of physical game. Likes to put some power into his shot and things like that. So I think that he's a guy that if you could throw him on the power play in a pinch if you need to. There's a lot of guys you could do on the US team here, but I think his flexibility in both of his zones there is very important. So I'd say I think the defensive depth this year in the American roster was a bit better than some might give it credit for heading into camp. So he had to really fight his way through, but just based off of how he played in that in the summer showcase, I think that put him much higher than some other guys there.
Well,
And
Pohlkamp, he goes to Bemidji State. So quick pop quiz to Steven. Is Bemidji State the best college name out there?
See, I'm glad you said it out loud because I didn't want to have to pronounce Bemidji State.
I'm pretty sure it's Bemidji State. I could be wrong. If it's not, they should change it up. It sounds way cooler. So.
I'll point out he's the only NHL prospect on that team, and you could tell some nights that he's out there performing better than a lot of those guys they got.
I guess for fans who are unfamiliar with this game, what does he bring specifically? I think people have talked about his shot a lot. Do you think that's kind of like what he brings is a good point shot and some compete?
There's a lot of power behind the way he shoots, the way he hits. He's, he on the power play, watching him, he's really patient with the puck. He knows when to shoot it, not just trying to move the puck for the sake of moving it. So it's smart decision making there too. And I think, he's also a decent skater. So there's that. So I think if you had to put like one phrase to describe him, it's high impact, just like from a velocity standpoint, like hits, shots. It's not, they're not weak.
I like it. It sounds like a perfect college hockey player.
Do you think some of those skills translate to NHL, or it's too early to say?
I still say a little too early to say. Going out there and putting up as good of a season in the USHL is one thing, and then college, he's not playing against the strongest competition every night. But I think this is an opportunity to really show what type of value he is. I don't think he's more than a third pair defenseman in the NHL, but if you get that out of a 5th round pick, I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, 5th round overager for sure.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's Bemidji State Beavers, so that just makes it even
good name. Yeah. It's a good name.
I love it.
Brad Hunt, alum, famous alum.
We'll mention one more prospect for Team USA, Quentin Musty. Are you familiar with Quentin Musty at all?
I've probably seen him in live maybe 20 to 30 times. I'd say yes.
So maybe a little. So you've seen him a lot, and he's having a phenomenal year in the OHL.
He's not slew-footing people.
When he's not slew-footing people, he's almost above 2 points a game, or he might actually be above 2 points a game now. Why do you think he was left off this roster? It's been kind of a sticking point for the Sharks fans.
Yeah, and it's not even a slight against him. I think you just look at the team, and one of the best junior hockey goal scorers right now in the world is Cole Yzerman, and he wasn't even invited to camp either. So this is a group that had a lot of offensive options. I don't think he was going to play in the top 6, the third line, a lot of speed, some guys that could maybe be a little quicker, do a bit more. Where Musty, I think, if he was there, it's for the offensive production he's able to bring. I just think it was just kind of a thing of just too many options to choose from. This is a group that has as much scoring depth as we've seen from the United States. It's too bad. I would have liked to see him at this event, but I don't think, unless you're putting him as the 13th forward, and that might be Oliver Moore, and his whole thing is the hardest, fastest working guy you've ever seen. I just don't think he would have been able to outbeat him there. So obviously, there's a bit of bias towards the major junior guys. I think we can't deny that when Hunter Brustevich is the Canucks prospect, is one of the highest scoring, defensemen in the CHL, and he wasn't invited to camp either. But I will point out, do you guys know much about the third goalie for the Americans, Sam Hildebrandt?
Isn't that isn't he kind of, I remember reading a headline that it was an interesting story about him, but I don't know specifically.
So I wrote a story this week about how he was.
It's probably your headline.
He was playing Junior C last year, was an emergency backup for the Barrie Colts for a little bit, and now he's the third goalie for USA at the World Juniors. Wow. So he's one of the few CHL guys, not someone I would have expected to be there. But when it comes to Musty, it's just like at the same time, for as good as he's playing, he's also playing with some pretty damn good line mates. So it's not like he's dominating it all on his own and you can't keep him off there. That's not a slight against him. It helps that he's playing with 2 outstanding junior hockey players too. But it was just kind of a numbers game, really, from what I was told.
What's up with the slew footing thing? Finding a replay of that, it's like finding like Zapruder, like you can't find it out there. So I still haven't seen what he did, but
yeah, that was I haven't seen the footage either.
Oh, so even you haven't seen it.
But clearly it was enough to give him the suspension, and then he comes back and doesn't he get like a 5-point game in his first game back or something.
He did, yeah, but then he got suspended again for the same thing.
Is Quentin Musty the Draymond Green of the OHL? Discuss.
Put it this way: he's going to be in the top 6 next year. I'm confident.
Yeah, because this team kind of is going to turn over a ton, right? Like there's a lot of guys that are going to lose eligibility after this year or be in the NHL.
Majority guys like that, yeah, he'll probably be what that second line is now with Will Smith. Will Smith, I'm banking on him going to the NHL next year. But you're going to throw in James Hagens there. You're going to get Cole Yzerman. You're going to get Musty. Like, it's still going to be a stupidly dangerous team.
Well, I got to, stop, a record scratch. Will Smith going to NHL next year. What are your expectations of him, of just sort of how he translates the first year?
I guess we'll see. That was my prediction last year, and I want to stick to it. But
Okay.
it's just, I think again, when he takes over, and he thinks the game at a very high pace. He plays the game at a high pace. There's a lot of NHL caliber talent there in terms of the way he thinks the game, shoots the puck. Deke's past guys like Deke had passed some USHL defensemen last year is not the same as deking out Kale McCarr, but it's still something where I think he's going to be a solid enough two-way player, a solid enough skilled forward that he's going to have no problem stepping into the NHL when he gets the chance. We'll just see kind of, I guess, obviously San Jose's not expecting big things like next year, so maybe they don't need to rush him. Hell, maybe they get Celebrini and then you really don't need him. But I wouldn't be if Smith signs and he plays in the NHL next year, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I wonder if it's kind of like in Greer's focus, because I know that they're very, very patient with the prospects so far.
Well, it's
so
got to be better than Columbus, which they don't seem to know what they're doing with the young guys.
Up, down, scratch, like all sorts of things with David Juracek and Ken Johnson. Like it does seem like they just throwing stuff at the wall. And Cole Sillinger, man, yeah, you're right. It's just doesn't seem like there's any kind of rhyme or reason with their team. But yeah, so we'll also have to see about Will Smith, because like there is, I think, in my opinion, some stuff that he could do in college to be better for the NHL. But you're right, the offensive impact he could have even at the NHL levels is probably enough to keep him. So we'll have to see. Let's move on to Team Canada really quickly. And this one will be kind of a shorter segment. Sharks don't have as many prospects for Team Canada. But they do have one of the surprises of the tournaments in terms of who makes the roster is Jake Furlong out of Halifax in the QMJHL. Furlong making this team. What do you think?
I did not have him making this team, but the way he played in camp, he scored the 2 goals in that first game against Hughes Sports. Granted, one was an empty netter, and the other was the biggest gift of a pass from future San Jose Shark, Macklin Celebrini. Yeah, it's from beyond that, though. In the second game, I thought he was still a really strong defensive defender. He played really well in his own zone. It seemed like that first game gave him the confidence, like, oh, I can do this. I can make this team. And he played a much more rounded game in that second showing there. So good for him. Getting a chance to talk to him after that first game. He's someone who said that he had to really prove a lot of people wrong to get to this point. I thought like some of the guys that he had to go beat out there, like Ty Nelson's one of the more dynamic offensive defensemen in the CHL, and stole a spot away from him there. So I think that's a big deal. So him making this team was not a guy I thought was going to, but he took advantage of Ty Nelson having a quiet run and Michael Buschinger, the Blues prospect, having a terrible camp. And he took advantage of it, and it showed. So good for him. A player that when he pinches in, he knows when to pinch in. He's smart about that, and that really paid off in that first goal he scored.
And what do you think his role is going to be on this team? I know it's always hard to kind of say that beforehand, but what do you think his role is going to be?
I think I got him penciled in potentially as the 7th defenseman on this team, just because you got some a bit more defensive guys that could play in a bit different roles. Getting Tristan Leno healthy. He's been sick for a few days. He'll be back in the lineup likely for the next exhibition game, and I think he'll be fine. Obviously, an Anaheim Ducks prospect there. So Canada's defense is quite rounded in terms of they got some size, they've got some speed, they've got some skill, they got some guys who know how to play defense in their own zone, because one of these things you will notice about a lot of quality defensemen these days is they don't play a lot of defense. And I think that's something that won't necessarily be an issue with this team. So I think they'll push him farther down, but hey, you know what? He's there, and he's got a chance at gold, and Canada's 3rd potential gold in a row.
Yeah, I do love the Jake Furlong story. And I think I watched him in that second U Sports game, and I really did like his defensive impacts. And he seems like kind of a guy that's maybe his mid-game is a little mature. As like for a junior hockey player at least, and that's probably going back to what you're saying, where a lot of guys don't play good defense. I think Furlong can play good defense, so maybe that's why they bought him.
Brant Clark in his early days in the OHL, like I don't know if sometimes if he was allergic to his own goalie being near him, because he would never play a lot of defense, but he put up a crap ton number of points, and we've seen kind of what that's allowed him to do this year in the AHL. But yeah, it's funny how that happens where these defensemen don't play defense and they are just trying to shoot the puck at all times.
I haven't watched Denton Matejchuk this year much at all, actually, but he reminds me of that during his draft year. It was just like go wilding out, going to be activating all the time, that kind of thing. I wonder if he still plays like that.
You look at him this year. He had points in his first 23 games, and his only game that he's played this year outside of the NHL preseason. He had 3 points in 4 games with Columbus then, so he was still good then. The only game he hasn't got a point was the final game before he flew to camp. So, and he scored 2 goals against Denmark in the first exhibition game. So, defensively, I have not seen him play any defense in person. I've only seen him score goals. So,
even while you're watching, he's not playing defense. Yeah,
it didn't help. He actually didn't participate in any of those 2 games in Oakville for training camp, but in that little scrimmage, he was trying to create chances on the rush.
Yeah. Good for Jake. I'm actually super pumped about him making the team. But let's move on to Team Sweden and 2 guys that are very used to playing internationally. And Filip Bystedt and Mattias Havelid. So Filip Bystedt was the Sharks' first round pick in 2022, towards the latter end of the first round. He had an amazing U20 last year. He put up like 10 points in 7 games, but he's had a little bit of a down year this year in Sweden in terms of his offensive production. Why do you think he does well at international tournaments as compared to his Sweden tape this year?
Some guys just do, right? Like you look at him this year and not putting up a ton of points. He's actually on pace for fewer points despite playing more games projected this year with Linköping. And a lot of that is, the team has a bit more scoring depth, kind of pushed him down a little bit, not always getting the same ice time. But I don't know. He's always kind of struck me as a hot and cold player. And like watching him with the World Junior Summer Showcase was one of the best players in that entire tournament, and it helped that the Swedes brought just the one team, so they got a good read on most of their guys. But he was consistently one of the standout guys in that tournament. It just, some guys just play better internationally. Dalibor Dvorsky, he's one of them. Otto Stenberg, another one that just looks like a pedestrian out there in the SHL at times. Then he goes to international tournaments and he's challenging for the MVP award. It's a very difficult thing to get these guys to be playing against men at a young age. So even at 19, like, you're not seeing a lot of guys at that age playing a lot, doing a whole lot in the SHL. So when someone's putting up numbers like Jonathan Lekkerimäki, the Canucks prospect, that's notable. So I'm not concerned yet. And we're still talking about a young guy playing on a team that cares more about winning than developing their guys, which makes a lot more sense given it is a pro hockey league. But it just seems like he shows up in these tournaments, and that's what they need from him again this year.
I think last year he was with was he with Leo Carlson last year at the U20s? I think he was.
I believe so, yeah. And that's why he got the 10 points he did.
That's the other thing. Is like he seemed to play really well with Leo Carlson. And he's going to have to kind of be on his own line. But it is a really well-rounded Swedish group, it feels like. Like this forward depth for there seems a little bit understated, I think, and a lot of guys that have played together before.
Yeah, like the thing with this team is they've been in the finals of the U18s back-to-back years. So you get the guys who were very close to each other 2 years ago and the guys that were close together last year getting to combine and make this really well-rounded offensive group. Defensively, we can always count on the Swedes to be pretty good. I think for me, the big concern is their goaltending, where Hugo Havelid, the brother of Mattias and the son of the coach, might be the starting goalie, but he's the smallest guy they have there and the only undrafted goalie prospect. But he tends to be given the nod because, skill-wise, he's very good for this level. Probably not having an NHL career at 5'10", but I think just we know that he can come out and shine. We saw that at the World Junior Summer Showcase. We've seen that in the past. I still think it's a team that I don't particularly trust because it's very hard to trust the Swedes at this tournament ever when you look at the record over the last 20 years.
With Bystedt and Mattias Havelid, what do you see with their NHL ceilings at this point with the seasons that they've had in Sweden?
It's a good question. With Havelid, I think I love that he's a puck moving defenseman who I thought actually landed some good hits. I thought he was really good at that World Junior Summer Showcase. In terms of what his NHL potential is, I'm not sure at this point. I know for this team, he probably is going to be, if he's not top pair, he's second pair. He's going to be playing a lot of ice time. Might even be one of the power play quarterbacks. So we'll see there. With Bystedt, it's kind of like I almost wonder if he'll fit better as a wing in the NHL. Where he doesn't have all that responsibility, and a lot of what he does is just getting to the net and putting pucks in the net because he can do that. He's got that size. So we'll see. But I think both should be NHL players. I'm pretty confident in that. It's maybe not top pairing, top 6 guys, but depth guys who do a lot with the puck that you'll get excited about.
And Havelid didn't get to play last year in the U20s. I think he was injured during that time, if I remember right. I just don't remember exactly what, but he didn't play. But 2 years ago, he was in the U18s and he put up like 12 points in 6 games, which is nuts for a defender.
I wish he was bigger. And I think
Mhm.
that's a given that both he and his brother would be better if they were bigger. But watching them play at that U18 level, it's like they're pretty damn good. And with
Yep.
Mattias, I know a lot of eyes will be on Axel Sandin Pellikka, but I think Havelid could be one of the better defensemen in this tournament if he plays like we saw him at the World Junior Summer Showcase.
Love it. We have one more prospect to talk about.
And he's my favorite.
1 second after I plug in my headphones. Sheng, do you want to take it over?
Sure. Kasper Halttunen, Team Finland. And actually, well, I have many questions, but actually, my first question, Steven, is to you. Why is he your favorite?
He's full of violence, whether it be how hard he hits, how hard he shoots. I got to see him for the first time in person at the U18s, and I've never seen a guy land a hit as hard as he did, and then go out and take a shot that somehow didn't break the glass within seconds of each other. Loved watching him with London. I think he's just a pure talent. A lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to talk to. I got to talk to him where he had a stare down with James Hagens after the U18 game they had against each other. And Hagens one of the top prospects for 2025. And it was hilarious because they got into it a few times. And Hagens isn't known to get into like the muddy areas, but Halttunen dragged him in there and made him get involved that way. And that was a lot of fun. So I love guys that hit, score, get in the heads of opponents and have a good smile about it afterwards.
Yeah, Kasper does have a lot of personality. I talked with him a bit during the rookie Faceoff, I believe, and yeah, so definitely for sure on that end. So that is exciting. But my question with him though is watching him though that he is sort of he shoots harder than everybody else, he hits harder than everybody else, he's bigger than everybody else. But does he do anything else like the other stuff? Is he learning how to play the other parts of hockey in London?
It's tough because again they're a high flying team where he doesn't necessarily need to do a whole lot of everything.
Mhm.
But the one thing I did notice watching him play in that first exhibition game they played, I think it was against Slovakia yesterday. He was blocking shots. He was
Mhm.
really hustling in his own zone. His game is built around putting some pucks in the net and doing that. Like that's his job. That's what he'll do if he gets to the NHL. But I think he still needs to work on the well-rounded game. Can get beat in the puck races a little from time to
Sure.
time. Sometimes will be maybe too much of a watcher out there. But I think just from the raw talent right now, he's getting into a good spot.
Mhm.
He's kind of like perfecting the things that he's good at right now, and the rest is going to hopefully come.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I watched him at the yesterday against that Slovakia team. It felt like a different player than what I watched in London because I've seen him in London, and it does feel like I don't know. He feels like just a power play option, and he's not really that dominant even strength. But I don't know. Yesterday he was flying like it was a different player almost.
Yeah, it's like he give him the space and he'll make it work. I think there's still a bit of an adjustment for him trying to figure out the OHL ice, but we didn't get to see really what he was capable of last year with HIFK and didn't score, 1 assist, didn't play a whole lot. But against his own group, like his own age group, he really looked good. He was a very difficult player to play against. It's going to be an interesting thing to see how he does translate to the NHL because he will not be the biggest player every single night. He will not be the strongest player every single night. But the raw talent makes me excited that if he could just work with the coaches to develop the rest of his game, I think he'll be more than just a human wrecking ball with a shot that looks stupidly powerful every time he takes it.
Yeah, the old time hockey and Kasper Halttunen is strong.
Yeah. Except that he doesn't fight. He sounds a lot like
Yeah.
this would be an old callback for Sharks fans, but like sounds like Link Gates. But
Link
except that he's
Gates.
got to add some fisticuffs to that, though.
I love it. Is there anybody else from the Sharks prospect pool that you want to talk about or shout out that you can think of?
Well, shout out to Cameron Lund for having a decent season this year. A guy that I think with this 6'2" frame and the defensive capabilities there, I like what he brings to the table there. Wasn't a USA World Junior, threat to me. I didn't think he was going to make the team, but just a guy that works hard and that type of energy, that type of size. could carve out a decent pro career out of that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I guess my question. Oh, go ahead, Keegan.
No, well, okay. So I guess one more guy that didn't make Team Canada was Luca Cagnoni after his I don't know, 30 points in 20 games or whatever he had. Is it really just kind of he's small? Is that kind of the answer?
Yeah, he does have a bit of tenacity to him, but they didn't you would have to even for all the offense. Yeah, he needed to be a bit better defensively, have a bit more size to really have had a chance on this team, because he would have had to fight out for a spot against Noah Warren, who's 6'5" and very good defensively and has the things that Cagnoni's missing. I'm a big fan of his game. I wrote a story about him on draft day saying this guy could be one of the bigger steals, I think. And he got drafted. What was it? Yeah, fourth round.
Fourth round, 123.
Yeah, should have been drafted much higher than that. But his lack of size does hurt. And I know that there's more smaller defensemen we're seeing in the NHL come through, but that's still not the norm. It's still tough for a guy like him to really shine through without being a superb, outstanding own zone player, which I feel like there are too many times where he's focused on trying to shoot the puck more than defend.
And my last question is just where would you rank the Sharks system compared to the rest of the NHL? Is it still many years of darkness for Sharks fans, or do you have a ray of light to bring us?
I think I can't remember where I put them in my draft or my prospect pool ranking.
Oh, not good, guys.
No, but it was top 5. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really? Okay.
I actually legitimately think that there's enough talent. Or maybe
top
lower
10,
than
maybe.
top 5. It was top 10 for sure. That's for sure. I think Will Smith gives it so much validity.
Yeah.
Big question for me: who's going to be that goalie of the future for the team?
Me.
Yeah, I'll play goalie. I'm good in NHL 24. I can do it.
Hugo Havelid. We signed him as a free agent.
Yeah.
Damn it, Hugo Havelid's taller than me.
Yeah, he doesn't, get over the crossbar, but sure, why not? And this year's draft's not going to really change that. I think they got to start putting towards that. And you guys would know better than me, but obviously you see what Blackwood's doing this year. This feels like the Blackwood that many Canadians thought would make him the starting goalie for the Olympics had they played in 2022, and it fell flat in those years in Devils, but it's nice to see him really find this game again. So maybe he's the guy. Maybe they trade him. I don't know. They got to figure out that option. That's the one thing they're missing, because they're a much better prospect group than they were heading into the NHL trade deadline last year. Getting Mukamadulin helped, Henry Thrun, I like him. They've added some key pieces. They just need a goalie at this point.
Yeah. Couple more, and Macklin Celebrini. That one hurt.
Oh yeah, Celebrini. You don't get him. You get. Let's say you get Eichmann. Let's say you get Demidov. Hey, we missed out on Michkov. We're not making that mistake again.
I guess I have one more to close then with just with Celebrini. Where do you kind of see his where would Celebrini go in the 2023 draft?
Top 3, I think.
Top 3 still. Okay.
I'm not sure if I like him more than Fantilli at this point. And I would take him just above Michkov. And I think with me, did you like watching Jonathan Toews in his prime era? That's what you get with Celebrini, except Celebrini also hits a bit more too. A guy that the players love having around. They view him as a leader. Just so smart. You look at the numbers; they're incredible. The skill, it's incredible. The goal he scored to win bronze at the U18s, he did that with like a great move, deked out the goalie with a injured shoulder. What? This guy's got so much talent. He's the real deal. And every year it's always that first pick, you expect so much great things, but I feel more confident about him than I felt over Lafreniere, to a point. Shane Wright, even though he didn't go first overall in 2022, but should have. Things like that. I think Celebrini's he's a complete package at this point.
Okay.
Guess I got one more before we get you out of here. Sure. There's a bunch of, I guess, defenders in the top 15 or so in this 2024 draft. Do you have a favorite so far?
I had this conversation with Ryan Kennedy of the Hockey News yesterday, and it's tough. On one hand, Anton Silyev, 6'7" defenseman who knows how to skate and produce offensively, playing almost 20 minutes a night in the KHL. That's pretty impressive. I think Zane Parekh is a blast to watch. I hate you describing somebody as fun to watch as a prospect, because that feels like that's not really analysis. But
sure.
Zane Parekh will always do something every game that's highlight reel worthy. Like he's a very fun defenseman that way. But Zeev Williams really kind of growing on me here. You look at what Lane Hudson was able to do last year, and Zeev Williams kind of doing the same thing this year in college at Denver, and he's going to play a big role in this U.S. team. So obviously, of those three guys, he's the only one playing the World Juniors this year. But he was a 2005 born, a late born guy, so he got the full 2 years of junior before going to college. So he has a bit of an up there. But I think those are the three guys. If I had to pick one right now, I think the sky high potential of Silyev is interesting because you don't get guys who are that big, can skate like that, and that offensively aware at 6'7". That doesn't happen. So I'd say
Going
I'd
back
pick
to
him
Russia.
right now.
Going back to Russia. That's it.
It's a slippery slope when you're looking at guys when you don't know if they're coming over anytime soon, right? So
yeah, it's kind of a little bit of a danger there. And I think I guess it's kind of comparable to Dmitry Simashev last year. I mean, their games are a little bit different, but huge guy, could skate really well.
Yeah, I like him more than Simashev. I guess the one thing I'll say about Russian prospects is there's always the concern if they come over or not. I actually can't remember the last like high quality prospect to not come over. So if that helps, it seems like all the actual sure bet NHL players do eventually make it over.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking our ear off all about the future of the San Jose Sharks, which is bright and could involve
Top 10.
Celebrini. Top 10.
Thank you for coming on and being fun to watch, Steven.
Yeah, thank you guys. Again, it's been fun legitimately watching Sharks games this year because you never know what's going to happen in a given game.
Sure.
But I do think the future is bright. But get used to maybe another couple more years of this. A couple more years
like
of
it.
terror.
A little darkness, my old
Get
friend.
ready for it because it'll pay off in the end.
Yeah, love it. All right, let's get you out of here. Bye.
Yeah, thanks,
Steven.
man.